For those who think the already introduced Makita battery lawnmower DLM382 might be a bit too small, I may have just the right thing for you today. We're talking about the next larger version, the DLM432. Also a 36-volt battery lawnmower here from Makita with a solid 430mm cutting width. So definitely a solid piece of technology that we'll take a closer look at in the video today. So let's get started right away. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe to this channel now and activate the bell so you don't miss any more videos. You can find the current prices of these two models in the video description below, of course. Thank you very much for your support, and let's get started after the intro. So this is the Makita lawnmower DLM432, essentially the next larger version next to the already introduced 382. For those who simply need a bit more than those 380mm, today we have 430mm. So I would say let's start with the scope of delivery and see what's really included here. As you can see, the packaging is already somewhat differently designed and constructed compared to the 382. I simply assumed that this lawnmower is a bit heavier and therefore the packaging naturally has to be more solid. Nevertheless, the scope of delivery is completely identical here, so of course we have the user manual, advertising brochures, and safety instructions. Next, we have the grass collection basket with accompanying accessories. Next, the two handles, the actual lawnmower, the DLM432, and finally, a complete torn bag with hopefully complete accessories. And I would now claim that the trained eye of the active viewers has already noticed that the scope of delivery is completely identical to the already introduced DLM382. That also means the assembly here is really one-to-one the same. And since the assembly is already quite simple, or rather since I've already explained this in detail in the video of the 382, I would say I'll just refer you to that video. If you haven't seen the video of the 382 yet, then definitely check it out. I'll link it for you right here on the upper right corner of the info card. As you can see, the DLM432 is now fully assembled. The assembly is really very simple, only 2-3 minutes, and the battery lawnmower is already ready to use here. So I would say, let's take a closer look at this one in detail. Regarding the first impression, one can say definitely a very solid and robust device, as we're used to from Makita here. Meaning nothing wobbles, nothing rattles, but the unit really gives a very high quality impression. In terms of implementation, the DLM432 is essentially completely identical to the DLM382, except that this one is a bit wider. And for that reason, to keep it from getting boring, I would say let's make today's video short and sweet, meaning focusing only on the most essential aspects of the DLM432. Starting with the exterior, here we find the robust plastic chassis of the DLM432. This is, as you can see, really very solid and robustly built, also certified by Makita with XPT, meaning protected against splashing water and dust. In this regard, the DLM432 weighs a total of 17 kilograms. Doesn't sound necessarily light, but for this size, I think it's perfectly fine. As I said, this is the net weight. That means, in total, 2 batteries are added here, and I would definitely recommend large batteries. Here, that would be 5-6 ampere hours, so roughly another 1.5 kilograms of weight. However, as seen already, the DLM432 has a nice large handle both front and back for comfortable carrying and transporting. If you want to lift the lawnmower, you can do so easily. And finally, as you can see, it's also perfectly possible to completely fold down the lawnmower here, so that it really takes up very little space in the winter. Regarding the operation and handling of this battery lawnmower, we find the handle right at the back, logically. This one is also quite comfortable. Just measured again briefly from the ground, we have a height of about 1.05 meters here. Basically, very comfortable, meaning I don't have to bend over or anything when I want to guide or steer the lawnmower here. In addition, the handle itself is again nicely rubberized, just like in the 382, meaning really comfortable and non-slip to grip. Right in front of that, we now find the two control elements here for unlocking and activating the battery lawnmower, meaning this small red button on the side. Press and hold it once to unlock, and through this lever, we can then activate the lawnmower here. Otherwise, there's nothing else to see up here, so I would say let's go down right away specifically to the direct technology. As we're used to, at the very top, we find the typical battery compartment made of transparent plastic. The battery compartment cover can be opened here through the locking mechanism. Directly below that, now the two 18-volt batteries. As I said, it's an 18-volt battery lawnmower in a 36-volt format, which means you need two 18-volt batteries here, and I would definitely recommend large batteries. So as I said, 5, if not even 6 ampere hours. Clearly, you can also have small batteries like 1.5, but in the end, you won't achieve a pleasant runtime with those. Otherwise, what else is there to see here? As I said, here in black at the back, the locking mechanism for the protective cover, and then here in red, the safety key. If this isn't inserted, the battery lawnmower won't start at all. Right next to it, we find the well-designed and nicely optimized lever for cutting depth adjustment, because as I already mentioned in the video of the 382, the predecessor models, namely the 380 and the 430, had very weak technology built in here. That can be said simply because every time you wanted to adjust the cutting depth, you felt like you were going to break the lever right off. That's not the case with the successor models, so with this one and the 382 anymore. Here, the whole thing definitely feels much more solid and better. More precisely, we have a cutting depth range here from 75 to 20 millimeters. That should be sufficient to even cut your golf course lawn to a solid 20 millimeters. On the side, we only see the metal bracket for the cutting depth adjustment once again, or here the 4 plastic wheels, which have also been greatly optimized. But what exactly has changed here now? Firstly, the DLM432 now has rubberized wheels, so when driving on hard surfaces like pavement or stone, the running noise is significantly reduced. But that's not all, because the wheels are also now mounted with ball bearings. This means there's much less friction, meaning less energy is needed to push the lawnmower. Definitely a tremendous improvement over the previous model, where plastic wheels were simply put onto the plastic axle. Next, let's move on to the underside. Here we find the installed blade with a diameter of 430 millimeters. This is sufficient for most applications. This installed blade is now driven by the brushless motor at a speed of 3600 revolutions per minute. Actually completely sufficient. But more precisely, it's 100 revolutions less compared to the smaller model, the 382. Otherwise, there's not much else to say here because the blade is brand new accordingly. Having arrived at the back, as you can see, we now have the grass catcher for the DLM432. A total of 50 liters fit in here, so it's already somewhat larger, and as you can see, this can of course also be easily folded down to take up very little space. It's attached here at the rear to this central rod. At the top, just like with the 382, here's the small fill level indicator that shows us whether the basket is full or not. During the mowing process, the flap is open, then the basket is not yet full, and as soon as it closes, the basket is so full that no more air can escape. Now it's time to empty it. But it's also possible to insert a mulching plug here for those who don't want to collect the grass. As we've seen, this is not included in the scope of delivery. It's optional, but must be purchased separately depending on whether you need it or not. And finally, before I forget again, the lawnmower also has 2 LEDs here at the rear, where it symbolizes to us how much battery charge is left. Because, of course, I can't take out the batteries during the mowing process and check how much is left, so directly tailored to the user. 2 LEDs symbolizing the remaining charge. So far, so good. So we've now gone through the details of the 432 once again. I would say I'll charge the batteries now and let's see what this one really has to offer. Alright, so now let's take a look at the next larger battery lawnmower from Makita in practice. We're talking about the DLM432. As you can see, the two large batteries are fresh out of the charger, fully charged for maximum power. And also, the grass catcher, the medium-sized one, with a total of 50 liters, is completely emptied here, because we want to see later on how much is really in there. In addition, the cutting depth for this test is set to a total of 60 millimeters, as you can see here. The grass is approximately 105 millimeters high. In this case, that's about 55 millimeters of grass cut. So I would say let's start right away with the test on the normal lawn area. For this, in the background, we have the timer. I've started it once so that we can see later how long I've really been working on the lawn with the mower, and of course, to be able to track the battery level as well. So for that, here's a time lapse, because I don't want to bore you. So where do we start? I would say, first of all, with the basic driving feel of the lawnmower. In my opinion, this is definitely very similar to the little brother, the DLM382. Because both lawnmowers are, as I said, very, very similar. The 432 is a bit larger, but still, overall, I would say that it drives very well and smoothly. You also don't need much force to push the lawnmower here. Because, as I said, there are ball bearings in there too, so the wheels turn very easily. In the end, the lawnmower can be moved with little energy. Also associated with turning and tilting the mower, because, as I said, the handle itself is, in my opinion, sufficiently high. You can also push the mower here without having to bend over. Just as easily lift it or rotate it 180 degrees, because basically, due to the construction, it's not necessarily heavy. So, in turn, for gardens or lawn areas where you have a lot of small corners and edges, the unit is actually optimal because it's small, light, and maneuverable. Nevertheless, I have to say that from a feeling standpoint, the DLM432 seems a bit more sluggish, especially compared to the previously tested DLM382. Actually logical if both have the same motor and the DLM432 has a larger blade, then accordingly it has less power, but that would really have to be tested again separately in a direct comparison. So far, so good, and now here's a little jump. The entire lawn area is now mowed. You can see the timer says a total of 27 minutes and the grass catcher is full again. In total, I emptied it 3 times for the test, or for the entire lawn area here. As I said, a total of 50 liters fit into the grass catcher here. It's not necessarily a lot, but completely sufficient for small to medium-sized gardens. And these are now the test results. As you can see, the lawn area looks pretty good. Of course, the blades are completely new and accordingly, the cut here is also clean. The mower has also collected all the leaves well. So in that respect, I would say the whole thing is commendable. Here's a close-up again. This is what the grass looks like after cutting. I would say most of the grass blades have really been trimmed to the same height here. That looks pretty good so far. Of course, there are still a few grass blades that really stand out here, but otherwise not bad. And this is the battery level now. 2 bars are still left out of the 5 amp-hour batteries. Also, after 27 minutes, definitely not a bad result. And now we move on to test number 2. So here, the extreme test on a lawn area or an overgrown lawn area where you wouldn't normally use the lawnmower anymore. Still, I measured it again about 100 centimeters in height. I'm curious to see if the lawnmower can handle it. To mention, I've set it to the highest level, of course, otherwise it would cause problems here. And here's the time lapse again as well. But even here, everything looks pretty good, meaning it has no problems with the tall grass. The overload protection also didn't kick in here, and the lawn area itself looks pretty neat, so really well done. Yes, and with that, I'm now done with the test or with the DLM432. You've seen the results were very solid, so there were no more problems in any discipline here. In summary, the DLM432 from Makita is a very robust and powerful battery lawnmower for small to medium-sized areas. Anything beyond that becomes critical because, as we've seen, even with the 430mm, you still have to go back and forth quite a few times. Nevertheless, the mower is very maneuverable. You can easily get into every corner and edge here without any problems. And with that, I also want to thank you for watching. So if you've enjoyed the video, then please show it by giving it a thumbs up to support the channel. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel quickly and activate the bell to not miss any more videos. You can find the current prices of these two mowers down in the video description. Thank you very much for your support. I wish you a wonderful weekend and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.